I was still holding the pie with both hands when my daughter-in-law stepped in front of the patio and smiled like she was doing me a favor. "Use the side gate," she said. Then she looked down at the pie dish. "Vendors don't come through the main yard." A few people laughed. Not because it was funny, because that is what people do when someone says something ugly in a cheerful voice and they want to pretend they did not hear it right. My son Daniel was standing by the grill with tongs in his hand. He heard her. I know he heard her. His head turned. Then he looked right back at the burgers. I stood there at the edge of my own child's backyard party with a peach pie getting warm in my hands like I was the help. There were folding chairs on the lawn, a blue cooler by the fence, my grandson Tyler tossing a football with two boys from next door, music playing low from a speaker clipped to the porch rail. It was all so normal that for 1 second I wondered if maybe I had become too sensitive. Then Heather reached for the pie dish without touching me. "Just bring it around back with the other food." The other food, like I had not been bringing that same pie to family cookouts for 23 years. Like I had not taught Daniel how to peel peaches over my own sink when he was 10 and too impatient to wait for water to boil. My fingers tightened around the dish. I said very calmly, "I was invited." Heather's smile did not move. "And vendors are still easier to manage through the side." That was when the music seemed to get quieter, or maybe it was just my blood in my ears. My sister's daughter, Janine, stopped unscrewing a bottle of soda. Tyler let the football drop under his arm, and Daniel finally turned around. He gave me a quick look that was half apology and half warning. "Mom," he said too lightly, "just come in through the gate, okay? Heather's trying to keep the patio clear." Trying to keep the patio clear. I remember that exact sentence because it was such a neat little lie. The patio was not crowded. Nobody was carrying hot trays. Nobody was setting anything up. Heather had one hand on her iced tea and the other on the door frame like a woman guarding a private club. Before I could answer, a car pulled up behind me. Not fast, not dramatic, just slow tires on gravel and the steady click of an old turn signal that had needed replacing for at least 10 years. Every head near the yard turned. I turned too. It was my father. He was easing his dark green Buick toward the curb like he had all the time in the world. My father is 88 years old. He still irons his own shirts, still keeps a silver pen in his pocket, still opens doors for women younger than I am. And he has a way of stepping out of a car that makes people stand up straighter without knowing why. He shut the door, looked from me to Heather, then to the pie in my hands. "Ruth," he said, "why are you standing outside with dessert?" Nobody answered. He took in the patio, the guests, Heather's face, Daniel by the grill. Then he looked right at my son. "Did the invitation change after it was sent?" Daniel gave a quick laugh. "Granddad, no, of course not." Heather tried one too. "There was just a little confusion." My father nodded slowly. "I don't think there was." He came around the car, took the pie from my hands like it was crystal, and said, "Come on, honey." Honey. The same thing he had called me when I was 6 years old, and came home crying because a teacher told me not to act smart. He walked straight through the patio entrance, not fast, not angry, just as if nobody there had the authority to stop him. And that was the truth. Nobody did. I followed him. Heather stepped back. Daniel moved a platter off the outdoor table as if he had planned to make room all along. My father set the pie in the middle of the food spread between the baked beans and the tray of corn. Then he looked at Heather and said, That smells better than whatever Daniel burned. A couple of people laughed then. Real laughter this time. Daniel forced a grin. Nice to see you too, Grandad. But Heather's cheeks had gone pink in a way that told me she was not embarrassed. She was angry. That is the thing people often miss. Embarrassment softens a face. Anger sharpens it. I knew right then she would not let the moment go. She would tidy it up later, explain it for everyone, make me the difficult one. That had become her gift over the past year. Nothing was ever done to me. It was always done for order, for efficiency, for the family, for my own good. I took a paper plate because my hands needed something to do. Tyler came over and stood beside me. He is 12, tall already, with Daniel's shoulders and the honest eyes he did not get from this side of the family. He looked up at me and said quietly, "Grandma, you're not a vendor." I almost smiled. "No, sweetheart." He frowned toward the patio door. "I know." Then Heather called him to carry buns, and he went. My father stayed close to me while people settled themselves. He asked about my garden, asked if the peach tree had held this year, asked whether my upstairs stairway still creaked near the linen closet. Ordinary questions, but I knew what he was doing. He was reminding the room that I was not some drifting extra in the family story. I had a home, a life, a history longer than the patio furniture and the matching serving bowls and the little sign Heather had put over the drink station that said "Summer with Family" in white painted letters. I watched Daniel move between the grill and the table. He was too quick with everything, too bright, too agreeable. That was his tell. When he was hiding something as a boy, he became helpful. He would clean his room before I asked, offer to take out the trash, compliment my meatloaf. At 40 years old, he still did the same thing. Only now he wore a wedding ring and called it being practical. Heather finally came over with a bowl of potato salad. She set it down a little too hard. Then she smiled at my father. "I'm glad you made it, Frank." My father did not correct her for using his first name. That told me he had noticed more than he was saying. He just nodded once. Wouldn't have missed a family gathering. There was a thin silence after that. Janine started talking about school supplies for her girls. Someone opened another bag of chips. A beer can hissed. And still I could feel something under the afternoon that had nothing to do with burgers or pie, like a tablecloth pulled smooth over a crooked surface. If this story is touching something in you, go ahead and like the video. And if you have ever been made to feel small in a place where you should have felt loved, tell me in the comments. I do read them. We sat down to eat, not at one table. Heather had done that scattered style she likes, where people are supposed to mingle, and it all feels easy and modern, only it also makes it harder to tell who is leaving whom out. I took a seat near the shade umbrella. My father sat beside me. Daniel stayed standing for a while, with his plate in one hand and a bottle of water in the other. He cleared his throat twice. Heather kept glancing at him, once, twice, then a third time. That was when I knew there was going to be an announcement. My stomach went cold before he even opened his mouth. I looked around and saw it hit other people too. Janine stopped mid-bite. Tyler leaned back in his chair. Even Heather's younger sister, Melissa, lowered her phone and tucked it under her leg like she suddenly did not want to be seen holding it. Daniel lifted his bottle a little. "You know," he said, "it's actually kind of nice having everybody here today." Nobody answered. He smiled anyway. Heather stepped up beside him and rested one hand flat against his back. That little touch was not affection. It was placement. She was putting him where she wanted him. My father laid his fork down. Daniel kept going. We've all been talking for a while about what makes the most sense moving forward. My chest tightened. There are some sentences that are really not sentences at all. They are doors closing. He looked at me then. Not long, just enough to say my name without saying it. And now that things are getting to be a little much for Mom with that big house. My father turned his head so sharply the legs of his chair scraped the concrete. A little much. Heather jumped in before Daniel could answer. We only mean maintenance-wise. Only. That word again. Always a little word before a big theft. I set my fork down, very carefully, because if I had kept holding it, I might have snapped it in two. Daniel was still talking, but I was no longer hearing every word. I heard pieces, better for everyone, less stress, closer to family, timing, by fall. Then I saw it, not across the yard, not in someone's hand, right there by the sliding door, half hidden under a stack of paper napkins and a bowl of plastic cutlery, a glossy folder, white, with a photo on the front, my front porch, my blue shutters, my house, and beside me, my father said, in a voice low enough to chill me and loud enough for Daniel to hear anyway, "What exactly have you done?" Daniel froze with the water bottle halfway to his mouth. Heather moved first. She reached for that folder by the door so quickly she might as well have shouted. But my father was quicker than she expected an 88-year-old man to be. He stood up, took 2 steps, and laid his hand over it before she could. Not rough, just final. "I asked a question," he said. The yard had gone so quiet I could hear grease snapping on the grill. Heather's smile came back, but thinner now. "It's nothing dramatic." My father lifted the folder and looked at the photo on the front. Then he looked at me, then at Daniel. A real estate packet is rarely nothing dramatic. Daniel set his bottle down. "Mom, please don't make this into something." There it was. Not what have you seen, not let me explain. Please don't make this into something. As if the something had not already been made. As if I had arrived carrying dessert and invented the whole afternoon out of spite. I stood up slowly. My knees felt steady. That surprised me. I said, "Why is my house on a real estate folder at your barbecue?" Heather folded her arms. We were waiting for the right time. My father gave a short breath through his nose. That sentence never ends well. A few people looked down at their plates. Melissa, Heather's sister, was staring straight ahead at the lawn like it had become very interesting. Janine looked at Daniel with the tight look women get when they already know the answer and dislike it before it is spoken. Daniel rubbed one hand over his mouth. "Mom, we've been worried." I said nothing. He kept going. "You've got stairs. The yard is too much. The taxes keep going up, and you've said yourself the place is too big." I said the upstairs guest room was too big for one window unit, I said. "That is not the same thing." He opened his hands. "Okay, but still. Another neat little bridge word, used when facts do not get you where you want to go. Heather stepped closer. "We found a lovely condo 10 minutes from us." I looked at her. Found, as if I were a winter coat that needed a better closet. "And did I ask you to?" She lifted one shoulder. "We're trying to think ahead." My father held the folder at his side. Thinking ahead for whom? Nobody answered that. Tyler was standing near the cooler now, not eating, just watching, his parents with his face gone pale in that young, shocked way that children get when adults stop pretending in public. Daniel finally said, "Mom, the market is good right now." I laughed once. I could not help it. A hard little sound. "So that's what this is." Heather's chin lifted. "It's about protecting value." My father turned toward her. Her value, or the house's. He did not say the second part. He did not need to. Heather's mouth tightened. Daniel stepped in. "Nobody is taking anything from Mom." The moment he said it, Janine looked away. That was the first time I understood she knew more than she wanted to know. Not everything, but enough. Enough to feel ashamed. I looked at her. She caught my eye for half a second. Then she reached for her drink and missed it before grabbing it again. That tiny, clumsy movement told me more than a speech would have. Somebody had discussed me, planned around me, and at least one person at that table had sat with it in their stomach and said nothing. My father opened the folder. Heather took a step forward. "Frank, really, that's private." He looked right at her. "Not if it concerns my daughter." Inside were listing papers. A printout with room estimates, suggested staging notes, a page about neighborhood comps, and clipped to the back was a yellow note with handwriting on it. Not mine. Heather's. "Front hydrangeas should be trimmed. Remove hallway family photos. Neutralize Mom's bedroom." I stared at those words longer than I should have. Neutralize Mom's bedroom. Like my life was a color scheme. Like 41 years in that house could be softened with beige pillows and a storage unit. Daniel saw where I was looking and said too fast, "That was just brainstorming." "Who was brainstorming?" I asked. He swallowed. Heather answered for him. "We met with a realtor." My father closed the folder. "Without her," Heather said. "Just informationally." That made Melissa flinch. A quick blink, a little tightening around her mouth. Then she took a sip of iced tea she clearly did not want. There was my second sign, not just Janine, Melissa too. Not guilty in the same way, more like dragged close enough to smell the smoke. I said, "How long has this been going on?" Daniel looked at Heather. Heather looked at him. And in that stupid, selfish little glance, they told me the truth before either spoke. Long enough to rehearse. Long enough to decide who would say what. Long enough that this was not one bad idea born on a Tuesday morning. "Since June," Daniel said. It was August. The air left my lungs, not dramatically, just all at once. Since June. 2 full months of phone calls and quiet talk and probably condo listings and probably furniture measurements and probably concern, spoken in that soft, careful tone people use when they are dressing theft up as love. And every Sunday Daniel had come by my house for coffee, sat at my kitchen table, asked for more cinnamon in his cup, kissed my cheek before leaving, all while planning where to put me. I said, "You sat in my kitchen and talked about the tomatoes." Daniel's face changed then, just for a second. He knew exactly what memory I meant. The morning he had stood at my sink eating toast and said, "This old place is still hanging in there." At the time, I thought he meant the gutters. Now I heard it the way he must have meant it. This old place. My father put one hand lightly on my arm, not to steady me, to keep me from wasting strength too soon. Heather crossed her arms tighter. "We were not trying to be cruel." "No," I said, "you were trying not to ask." That hit, I could see it, not in Heather, in Daniel. He looked away toward the grill, then toward Tyler, then down at the concrete. His voice dropped. "We knew you'd say no. There are moments when a person tells on himself so completely that silence becomes louder than any accusation. That was one. Because there it was, not concern, not confusion, not family planning. They knew I would say no, so they went around the no. My father said very softly, "And you found that acceptable?" Daniel snapped then, not loud, but sharp. "Granddad, you don't understand how hard this has been." My father's brows went up. "No," Heather jumped in. "She won't let Daniel help with anything." I looked at her. "I did not ask him to manage my life." "You asked him to come fix the back fence 3 times. I asked my son to help with a fence." She spread her hands. "Exactly." That one word told me more about Heather than anything else she had said all afternoon. Exactly. As if ordinary family help was evidence, as if the road from mending a fence to clearing out my bedroom was obvious and sensible. Janine finally spoke, quietly. She didn't ask to move. Everybody turned. She hated that instantly. I could see it. Her cheeks went pink and she tucked a strand of hair behind one ear with fingers that were trembling a little. Heather gave her a look so quick most people would have missed it. But I did not, and neither did my father. Janine looked down at her plate. "My mom told me last week there was maybe a condo plan." Daniel stared at her. "Why would Aunt Louise say that?" Janine's mouth opened, then closed, because she had not meant to say that much, because she had hoped to stay in the safe middle where decent people tell themselves they are not involved. My father asked, "Louise knew too?" Daniel did not answer. That was answer enough. Now the room shifted. I felt it, not toward me exactly, but away from them. That is how it starts, not with applause, with people losing their nerve to keep lying. Melissa set her cup down. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Heather turned so fast her ponytail swung. "Melissa." "What?" Melissa said, already regretting it. "You asked me to look at those condo pictures." Heather's whole face changed. Not rage, fear, tiny, bright fear, because once one person speaks, others realize the roof is not as solid as they thought. I said, "How many people have been discussing my future without me?" Nobody answered. Even the children had gone still. A dog barked 2 yards over. Somewhere down the street, a motorcycle passed. And in the middle of all that ordinary summer noise, my son would not look me in the eye. My father handed me the folder. "Keep this." Heather stepped toward me. "That packet belongs to the realtor." I took it from him and held it against my side. "No," I said. "It belongs to the woman whose bedroom you plan to neutralize." Daniel closed his eyes for a second. That was the first honest thing he had done all day. When he opened them, I saw something I had been waiting for. Not courage, not yet, but shame. And shame matters because shame means the lie is getting heavy. My father reached for his keys. I looked at him. He said, "I think I should drive over with you." "Over where?" Daniel asked. I turned to face him. "To my house." Heather gave a short, nervous laugh. "Why?" Because I had just remembered something small. Not a paper, not a speech, a moment. 3 weeks ago, Daniel had offered out of nowhere to help me organize some drawers upstairs. At the time, I thought it was strange. Daniel hates sorting drawers. As a teenager, he shoved tax forms, baseball cards, and church bulletins into the same box and called it filing. But that day he had lingered upstairs longer than necessary. Too long. And when he came down, he had asked me very casually whether I still kept the old home papers in the cedar chest in my bedroom closet. I had answered without thinking, no, not there anymore. In the desk downstairs. Now, standing in his backyard with that real estate packet in my arms, I felt cold all over. because Daniel had not been making conversation. He had been checking, and if he had been checking, then there was something at my house they had expected to find, or hoped was no longer there. I looked at my son and said, "I want to see what you were really looking for." Daniel's face went still, not confused, not surprised, still, like a man who just heard something he hoped I would never say out loud. Heather stepped forward before he could answer. "You're overreacting." I did not look at her. I kept my eyes on my son. "What were you looking for in my bedroom?" Daniel let out a breath through his nose. "Mom, come on." That tone, that tired, gentle tone meant to make me feel unreasonable. I had heard it before, just not from him. My father moved closer to my side. "You can answer her," he said. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "We were just trying to get a sense of things." "A sense of what?" "Paperwork." There it was, simple, small, almost harmless. Except it was not. I nodded once. "What paperwork?" Heather crossed her arms. "The usual things." My father gave a short laugh. "The usual things is not an answer." Daniel's voice sharpened. "It's nothing shady." Janine shifted in her seat. Melissa looked down again. Tyler was watching his father like he had never seen him before. That was when I knew I could not let this drift into soft explanations. If I did, they would smooth it out, turn it into concern, turn me into the difficult one. I said very clearly, "You asked me about my home papers." Daniel's eyes flicked to Heather. Just for a second, but it was enough. Heather stepped in. "We were trying to help you get organized." I let that sit in the air. Then I said, "By checking where I keep my documents." No one answered. The grill hissed behind Daniel. Someone's soda fizzed over the top of a plastic cup. The world kept moving like nothing had cracked. I turned to my father. "I want to go home." Heather laughed again, a little too quick. "Right now?" "Yes." Daniel stepped forward. "Mom, there's no reason to—" "There is," I said, and I did not raise my voice. That was the part that made him stop, because he knows me. He knows when I am finished being polite. My father was already reaching into his pocket for his keys. "I'll drive." Daniel looked between us, then at the guests, then at Heather. He was calculating, not what was right, what would look right. "I'll come with you," he said. Heather turned sharply. "Daniel!" "I said I'll come." That was the first time all afternoon he had pushed back on her. Small, but real, and it changed something in the air. Heather's lips pressed together. For a second, she looked like she might argue. Then she smiled again. That same tidy smile. "Of course," she said, "but this is unnecessary." My father did not answer her. He just started toward the front yard. I followed. Daniel came behind us. I heard Heather's voice low and tight as we walked away. "We'll talk about this later. Not we will figure this out. Not we will explain. We'll talk about this later." That sentence was not for me. It was for him. Outside, the sun felt brighter than it should have. My father unlocked the car. I got into the passenger seat. Daniel slid into the back, like a child being taken somewhere he did not want to go. Nobody spoke for the first minute, just the sound of the engine and gravel under the tires. Then my father said, without turning around, "When you went upstairs, what did you open?" Daniel leaned back. "I didn't open anything." My father nodded once. "That is not what I asked." Silence. I watched the road. The same streets I had driven for years. The same stop sign where Daniel had once forgotten to look left and nearly rolled into traffic. The same bakery on the corner where I used to buy cinnamon rolls on Sundays. Everything looked exactly the same, and nothing felt the same. I looked in the closet, Daniel said finally. I closed my eyes for a second. Which closet? Your bedroom. What did you move? Nothing. I turned my head and looked back at him. Daniel. He looked at me then, and I saw it again. That flicker, not defiance, not yet, but not clean either. I just checked the cedar chest, he said. My chest tightened. And it was locked. That surprised him. I could see it. He had not expected that. I said, so you tried to open it? No, he said quickly. I didn't force anything. My father's voice stayed even. But you tried. Daniel looked out the window. I lifted the lid, and when it didn't open, I left it. I held the folder tighter against my side, because now the picture was clearer, not complete, but clearer. They had expected something to be there, something important enough to check when I was downstairs making coffee, something they could not just ask me for. And when they did not find it, they kept moving anyway. That told me something else. They were not sure. They were guessing, and guessing makes people careless. We pulled up in front of my house, white siding, blue shutters, the same front porch I had seen on that glossy folder. My father turned off the engine. No one moved right away. Then he said, let's go see what your son was looking for. We went inside. The house was quiet, cool. It smelled faintly like lemon cleaner and the lavender sachets I keep in the hall drawer. Nothing had been disturbed. Not obviously. That is the thing about careful people. They do not leave messes. They leave shifts. Tiny ones. My father went straight to the living room and stood near the doorway. Not hovering, just present. Daniel stayed a step behind me as I walked toward the stairs. I could feel him there, close enough to reach out, far enough to pretend he wasn't following. We went up. Each step creaked the way it always had, the third one louder than the rest. I paused at the top, turned, looked at him. Stay there. He nodded. For once, he did exactly what I asked. I went into my bedroom. The bed was made, the curtains half open, the cedar chest at the foot of the closet, exactly where it had always been. I crossed the room and knelt in front of it, ran my hand over the lid. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small key. I do not keep it in the house. I learned that years ago from a neighbor who had a brother who borrowed things. I turned the key, lifted the lid. Inside were blankets, old ones, handmade, folded carefully, and beneath them a flat wooden box. I took it out and set it on the floor. Then I stood up, carried it to the bed, and opened it. Inside were papers. Not many, just the ones that matter. I heard Daniel step closer to the doorway. Mom, stay there. He stopped. I flipped through them. Deed, insurance, a letter from years ago, and the one I was looking for. Still there, untouched. I let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding. Then I picked it up and turned toward him. You were looking for this. He leaned slightly forward. What is that? I watched his face carefully, not his words. His face, because people can say anything, but the face tells the truth first. And there it was, a flash, quick, gone almost immediately. But I saw it, recognition. He knew, maybe not every detail, but enough. My father stepped into the hallway behind him. What is it? He asked. I held the paper in my hand. I'm not going to explain it yet, Daniel frowned. Why not? Because I want to hear what you think it is. He shook his head. I don't know. I walked closer, slow, until I was standing right in front of him, close enough that he could not look anywhere else. You went into my room. Yes. You checked my chest. Yes. You asked about my documents. Yes. So don't tell me you don't know. His jaw tightened. I had an idea. There it was. Finally, a crack. My father said nothing. He just watched. Daniel swallowed. We thought maybe you had already changed things. Changed things. I repeated it. Changed what? He looked at me. Really looked. And for a second, I saw the boy he used to be. The one who came to me when something broke, and he did not know how to fix it. Then it disappeared. We thought you might have moved the house, he said. The words hung there. Moved the house. Like it was furniture, like it was a chair you slide across a room. But I knew what he meant, and so did my father. My father's voice dropped. To whom? Daniel hesitated, and that hesitation told me more than any document ever could. Because it meant this was not just about selling. This was about losing control of something they thought already belonged to them. I said very quietly, "You thought I gave it to someone else." Daniel did not answer. He did not need to, and in that silence something inside me settled. Not anger, something colder, clearer, because now I understood. This was never about helping me move. It was about getting there before I made a decision they could not control. I looked down at the paper in my hand, then back at my son, and I said, "Then I think it's time we stop guessing." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I folded the paper once, carefully. "I mean, we're going to talk about exactly who you were afraid I might give my house to." And this time, when I looked at him, he didn't look at Heather. He didn't look away. He just stood there and said one name, Granddad. For a second, nobody moved. Not me, not Daniel, not even my father behind him. The word just sat there between us. Granddad. My father let out a slow breath. Not surprised, not shocked, just disappointed. I looked at my son. "Say that again." Daniel swallowed. We thought you might have put the house in his name." My father stepped fully into the room then. "You thought I would take it." Daniel turned halfway toward him. "I didn't say take. You said my name." Daniel's shoulders tightened. "We just didn't know what you had already done." There it was again. That careful language. That soft way of stepping around the truth. I held the paper in my hand and shook my head once. "You didn't know." Then I looked at my father. "They didn't ask." He gave a small nod. No anger, just agreement. I turned back to Daniel. "You sat in my kitchen." He didn't answer. "You drank my coffee." His eyes dropped. "You asked me about the tomatoes." His mouth pressed thin. "And all that time, you were trying to figure out if I had already given my home away." His voice came out low. "We were trying to make sure things didn't get complicated." I let that sit. Complicated. Such a neat little word for something so ugly. My father walked past him and came to stand beside me. He didn't look at Daniel when he spoke. He looked at me. "Do you want to show him?" I thought about that. Not long, just enough. Then I nodded. "Yes." I unfolded the paper, held it in both hands. It wasn't a stack. It wasn't a thick file. Just a single page. Simple. Clear. The kind of paper that doesn't need decoration because it already carries weight. Daniel leaned forward slightly. Heather wasn't here. There was no one to fill the silence for him. No one to smooth his words. It was just him, my father, and me. I said, "This is not new." His brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I signed it 3 years ago." That hit him. I saw it. His head pulled back just a little. 3 years. That was before Heather. Before the tidy patio. Before the condo talk. Before all of this. You never told me, he said. No, I answered. I didn't. Why not? I looked at him, really looked. At the time you were busy building your life. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. That's not a reason to... It is, I said, and I kept my voice calm, because this was not a fight, not anymore. This was something else, something steadier. You were working late, traveling, trying to get your footing, I continued. You had your own decisions to make. He shifted his weight. That doesn't mean I shouldn't know about something like this. My father finally looked at him. Something like what? Daniel turned to him. The house. My father's expression didn't change. Whose house? Daniel hesitated. My mom's. Then why would you need to know before she chose to tell you? That landed. Harder than anything I had said. Because it stripped away the soft language, left the question bare. Daniel looked back at me. What does it say? I held the paper a second longer, then I handed it to him. Read it. He took it, carefully. Like it might change in his hands, his eyes moved across the page, once, then again, slower. His lips parted slightly, then pressed together. I watched his face, not the paper, because the paper was not the moment. His reaction was, and there it was, confusion first, then realization, then something else, not anger, not yet, something closer to being displaced. Mom, he said quietly. I said nothing. He looked up. This puts the house into a trust. Yes. With instructions. Yes. His voice tightened. It doesn't go directly to me. No. He glanced at my father, then back at the page, then back at me. Why? There it was, the real question. Not what is this, not when did you do it. Why? I took a slow breath. Because I wanted to decide what happens to my home. He shook his head. That doesn't explain. It does. I stepped closer. You thought I was going to give it away without you knowing. His grip on the paper tightened. We just didn't want surprises. I nodded. And I didn't want pressure. That stopped him. My father folded his hands in front of him. Pressure has a way of appearing when people start planning things that are not theirs to plan. Daniel looked between us. This isn't fair. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because I had heard that sentence before many times, usually from him when he was younger, when something didn't go his way. What part isn't fair, I asked. That I'm your son, he said. That I should be part of decisions like this. I tilted my head slightly. You are part of my life. That's not the same thing. No, I said. It isn't. He exhaled sharply. So what? I just wait and see what happens? My father answered that one. Yes. Daniel looked at him like he had just spoken a different language. That's not how families work. My father's voice stayed calm. That's exactly how they work when respect is still in the room. That landed deeper than anything else because it wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was simple and true. Daniel looked down at the paper again, his thumb moved along the edge. This gives you control, he said to me. Yes. And it sets conditions. Yes. He swallowed. What kind of conditions? I paused. Not because I didn't want to answer, because I wanted him to feel the space first, to understand that not everything would be handed to him neatly anymore. That depends on behavior, I said. He looked up sharply. Behavior? Yes. His eyes narrowed slightly. That sounds like punishment. No, I said. It sounds like boundaries. He opened his mouth, then stopped, because he knew. Somewhere inside, he knew the difference. My father stepped toward the window and looked out into the yard, gave us a moment. Daniel lowered his voice. Does Heather know about this? No. She's going to find out. Yes. He let out a breath. You should have told me. I nodded once, and you should have asked me. That ended that. Not with noise, with quiet. He handed the paper back, slowly, like it no longer belonged in his hands. Is Granddad involved? He asked. I shook my head. No. My father turned slightly. I would have said no if she asked. Daniel looked at him. Why? Because it's not mine. Simple again. Daniel looked between us, and for the first time that day he didn't have something ready to say. No neat sentence, no bridge word, no, we were just trying to, just silence. I folded the paper again, put it back in the box, closed the lid. Then I stood there for a second longer than necessary, looking at my own room, my bed, my dresser, the hallway beyond. This wasn't about a house anymore. It hadn't been for a while. It was about being moved, handled, discussed. And now, stopped. I turned toward the door. We're going back, Daniel frowned. Back where? To your barbecue, he blinked. Why? Because you started something in front of people. My voice stayed calm. You're going to finish it in front of them. His shoulders stiffened. Mom, no. I walked past him into the hallway. This doesn't get cleaned up later in quiet. My father picked up his keys. I added, without turning around, it gets said where it was started. Daniel did not argue in the car this time. That told me more than anything he could have said. He knew we were past the point of smoothing it over. My father drove the same steady way he always does. No rush, no hesitation. Like the road would still be there, whether we hurried or not. I sat with the folder on my lap, the real estate packet, my house on the front. And beneath that, in my mind, the paper in my bedroom, the one Daniel had hoped I didn't have or had already used. Neither option had made him comfortable. We pulled up to the curb. The music was still playing, louder now, like someone had turned it up to fill the space we left behind. Heather was standing near the patio door, watching, waiting. She didn't wave, she didn't smile. She just stood there with her arms folded, already braced. We got out of the car. My father walked beside me. Daniel came behind us again, the same formation as before, only now it meant something different. We stepped into the yard. Conversations dipped, not all at once, but one by one, like lights going out in different rooms. Heather spoke first. Well, she said, bright and tight. That was quick. I walked past her, set the folder down on the outdoor table, right in the middle, next to the corn and the beans. I think we should finish the conversation Daniel started. Daniel shifted behind me. Heather gave a small laugh. I don't think this is the place. It is, I said, because she had made it the place when she stopped me at the patio, when she used that word, vendor. You don't get to choose privacy after you choose public. People were turning fully now, plates half finished, drinks forgotten. Tyler had moved closer again. Janine was standing near the umbrella. Melissa was beside her, hands wrapped tight around her cup. Daniel stepped forward. Mom, maybe we can just... No. I turned to him. You said I couldn't manage my house. I didn't say that. You said it was too much for me. He hesitated. That's different. No, I said, it isn't. My father stayed just behind my shoulder, not speaking, but present enough that nobody would try to step over me again. I picked up the folder, opened it, turned it so everyone could see the front page. My home, I said, my address. I closed it again. And plans, that were made without me. Heather stepped in. We were trying to help. I looked at her. You were trying to arrange. She smiled, thin, controlled. As any family would. Janine shifted. Melissa looked down. Daniel said, we were concerned. There it was again. Concern. That soft word people use when they want to take control without asking. I nodded once. So concerned that you met with a realtor. Silence. So concerned that you made notes about my bedroom. Heather's jaw tightened. That was just staging. Neutralize Mom's bedroom. I said it exactly as it was written, and that landed harder than anything else because now it wasn't interpretation. It was their own words. Tyler looked at his mother, confused, a little hurt. Why would you neutralize Grandma's room? Heather turned toward him quickly. That's not what it sounds like. He didn't look convinced. And children know. They always know. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. Mom, this is getting out of hand. I let that pass because I wasn't finished. You went into my house, I said. He froze. You went upstairs. He didn't answer. You checked my bedroom. His mouth opened, closed. Heather looked at him. That was the first time she didn't have something ready, because she hadn't known that part would come out. That was new. That shifted things. I watched her realize it, watched the small flicker of panic, and then I kept going. You were looking for something, Daniel said quickly. It wasn't like that. You were looking for paperwork. Silence. Janine looked at him. Melissa did too. My father finally spoke. Go on. Daniel's voice dropped. We just wanted to understand. No, I said. You wanted to get ahead of me. That hit because it was true, and there was no soft way to turn it into something else. Heather stepped forward. This is ridiculous. I turned to her. Is it? She lifted her chin. Yes. Then explain it. She didn't. Not right away, because explanations require clean ground. And she didn't have it anymore. Daniel tried again. We thought maybe things had already been decided. I nodded. Yes, they have. That shifted the air. People leaned in, not physically, but you could feel it, the attention, the focus. Even the music seemed too loud now, like it didn't belong. Heather looked at me sharply. What does that mean? I didn't answer her. I looked at Daniel. You told me today you didn't want surprises. His face tightened. Yes. So, let's not have any. I took a breath. Not a deep one, just enough. My house is in a trust. That landed, not loudly, but completely. Daniel closed his eyes for a second. Heather blinked. What? I repeated it. My house is in a trust. She laughed, short, sharp. That doesn't mean anything, my father said. It means quite a bit. She ignored him. Who controls it? I looked at her. I do. Her mouth pressed thin. And after you? That depends. On what? I let the silence sit again, long enough. On behavior. That word again. This time it spread. You could see it on faces. Confusion, curiosity, a little discomfort. Daniel stepped forward. Mom, no. I held up a hand. You wanted to plan my future. His jaw tightened. We were trying to protect you. You were trying to move me. That landed. Because now everyone could see it, not just hear it, see it in the folder, in the notes, in the way Heather stood, in the way Daniel couldn't meet my eyes. Tyler looked between us. You're not moving, right? I softened then, just a little. I looked at him. No, sweetheart. He nodded, relief clear on his face. Heather turned to Daniel, low, sharp. You didn't tell me about the trust. There it was. Not concern, not family, control, information. Daniel didn't answer because he hadn't known. And now she knew he hadn't known, and that changed something between them, small but real. I watched it happen. Then I said calmly, and this stops now. Heather turned back to me. You can't just, I can. I didn't raise my voice. I am not moving. Silence. And no one is listing my house. More silence. No one is making plans about my life without me. Daniel exhaled slowly. We weren't trying to hurt you. I nodded once. I know. And I did. That was the hardest part. They weren't trying to hurt me. They were trying to manage me. And sometimes that feels worse. I picked up the folder, closed it, and pushed it toward Daniel. You can return this. He didn't take it right away. Then he did, slowly, like it had weight now. Real weight, not paper, consequence. My father stepped forward then, just one step. Anything else? He asked. Nobody spoke, because the answer was no. The rest would come later, in quiet, in smaller conversations, in the spaces where people decide what kind of family they want to be. I looked at Daniel, then at Heather, then at everyone else, and I said, we're done planning my life. And this time, no one tried to correct me. Nobody spoke for a moment after that, not even the music. Someone must have turned it down without me noticing. Because all I could hear was the wind moving through the trees and the small, uneven breathing of people trying to decide what to do next. Daniel was still holding the folder. He looked at it, then at me, then at the ground. I didn't think it would go like this, he said. I nodded. That's usually when something shouldn't be done at all. He let out a breath, not sharp, not defensive, just tired. Heather stepped forward again, slower this time, careful, like she was walking into something she didn't fully understand anymore. You're making this bigger than it is. I looked at her. No, I kept my voice steady. I'm making it clear. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. We were trying to help your son. That was the first honest thing she had said. Not help me, help him. I gave a small nod. I know. Daniel looked at her, then back at me, and I saw it, the shift, not complete, but real. He was seeing the shape of it now, not just the plan. The reason behind the plan. Heather's reason, and his part in it. I should have asked you, he said. Yes. I should have talked to you first. Yes, he swallowed. I didn't. No. That was enough. No lecture, no long explanation. Just the truth, placed where it belonged. My father moved a chair with the toe of his shoe and sat down slowly, like a man settling into the end of something he had been watching for a long time. Tyler came closer, not all the way, but near enough to hear. Are we still having the barbecue? He asked. That almost made me smile. Children always pull things back to the ground. Yes, I said. We are. He nodded, relieved, simple, clean, the way things should be. Janine stepped forward a little. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I looked at her. I know. And I did. She hadn't let it. She hadn't stopped it either, but she had felt it, and that matters. Melissa cleared her throat. I didn't think it was right, she said. Heather turned toward her sharp. I said I wasn't sure, Melissa cut in. That's not the same thing. Heather's face tightened. For a second, it looked like she might try to pull it back, together, again. But she didn't, because it was already too visible now, too open. You can't put something back once everyone has seen it. Daniel walked over to the table, set the folder down, not in the center this time, off to the side, like it didn't belong there anymore. I'll call the realtor, he said. I nodded. Good. He looked at me again. This time he didn't look away. Can we talk later? I considered that. Not long, just enough. Yes, Heather shifted. And me? I met her eyes. That depends. She didn't like that. I could see it. But she didn't argue, not this time, because now she understood something she hadn't before. I wasn't someone she could organize or place or adjust around her plans. The yard began to move again. Slowly, carefully. People picked up their plates. Someone turned the music back up, softer this time. Tyler grabbed the football again, but he stayed closer. Daniel went back to the grill. Not with the same energy as before. Quieter, more aware. My father sat beside me. He didn't say anything at first, just rested his hands on his knees and looked out at the yard. After a minute, he said, "You handled that well." I let out a small breath. I waited too long. He shook his head. No. I looked at him. He gave me that same steady look he had given me at the gate. The timing was right. I sat with that. Let it settle. Because he was right. If I had spoken earlier, it would have been brushed aside, turned into something small, something I imagined. Today, it had nowhere to hide. I watched Daniel flip a burger, watched him check it twice before setting it down. Slower, careful. That was new. Heather stood near the drink table, not directing, not arranging, just standing, thinking. That was new too. I picked up a napkin, smoothed it over my plate, not because it needed smoothing, because my hands needed something simple, something ordinary. And for the first time that day, I felt still, not small, not pushed, just still. Daniel came over a few minutes later with a plate. He set it in front of me. Burger, he said, not burned. I looked at it, then at him. Thank you. He nodded, didn't try to say more, didn't try to fix it all at once. That mattered. Because some things don't get fixed in one afternoon, they get changed, then tested, then slowly rebuilt. My father leaned back in his chair, satisfied. Not because everything was perfect, but because the line had been drawn, clear, simple, visible, and held. I took a bite. It tasted like every other barbecue burger I had eaten in that yard, and not like any of them at all, because this time I wasn't standing at the gate. I was sitting at the table where I had always belonged and where I would remain. If this story stayed with you, I'd really like to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you believe in setting quiet boundaries without losing yourself, give this video a like. And if you enjoy stories like this, you're always welcome to subscribe and stay a while. There are more stories here, and I'm glad you're part of them.